What is this game? This game is a hard-boiled investigative story inspired by the likes of Veronica Mars and Rockstar's LA Noire video game. We have put together a fictional city named Mystic, which is meant to resemble a sunny Hollywood setting. For easy frame of reference, think Quentin Tarantino's New Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. The protagonist of our video game is a private detective named Pius Mavis. She is a dedicated PI with a dark past. The game has an array of friendly, and not so friendly, characters that Pius will have to interact with. As this game was inspired by LA Noire, our game was designed with a large scope. The plan was to have the player capable of exploring Mystic as much as the player could explore in a Twine game, meaning that there would be side quests to keep the protagonist in business, and excess characters for the protagonist to run into. Obviously, such a large scope would be impossible to actually create, but for the purpose of this presentation, we will be talking about this game as if it was fully developed and published.
The story of Sunburnt Sky focuses on a young private investigator living and working in Mystic County named Pius Mavis. She's got a dark past and a point to prove, but most importantly, she is very, very good at what she does. Along with her best friend Harley Love, Pius has made a comfortable living by following in her father's footsteps and working and practicing as a PI. Although the main story revolves around solving the case of Oliver Lucas, care of movie star Delilah Brossard, there is also the case of her missing father Brooks, and the process of Pius tracking down her missing father also becomes imperative to the overall story. There are many side quests and jobs along the way, and in the game world, taking these jobs is absolutely necessary to completing and reaching the final goal. Pius is either rewarded either financially or through associated connections, which are all imperative to her reaching the final goal and solving the case. The most important part about the story, however, are the decisions made by the player directly affecting the end of the story and the case of Oliver Lucas. If Pius continually acts irrationally and or refuses to help who really needs it, the case of Oliver Lucas is really never solved and continues to haunt her for the rest of her days. Dark, yes, but if, however, the player makes decisions based around an overarching need and want to help people, the outcome is much, much different. Oliver is actually found alive and well after being kidnapped by a yet-to-be-named enemy. Although Sunburnt Sky is a quest game, it is very much focused around player decisions, and the end of the individual story shapes and changes depending on decisions made throughout the game. As a reference, Fable 3 would be a great example.
Play the game through our protagonist, Pius Mavis. The game's mechanics were designed around the notion of giving players a sense of freedom with their playthrough. During scenes, you will have multiple choices of dialogue so that you can play as aggressive or as cautious as you wish. This game was created with a branching narrative structure so that even during the main storyline, you could have the freedom to follow different threads over the course of the investigation. But ultimately, as this is still just a Twine game, you can summarize the game mechanics as reading the scene that's on the screen in front of you and pointing and clicking on the options you have available.
Well, we like to think so. We think this game works because of many different reasons. The narrative is engaging and intriguing for the player in that they ultimately have a job to do and a mystery to solve. As well, the characters are relatable yet different enough to what we engage with in our day-to-day lives, unless of course you're a PI. Being a Twine game, the game itself is based on player decision-making, and in the case of Sunset Sky, player directly affect the outcome of the game. There's such great power in that for us as players, and is a style of game which is very popular in the game world at the moment. Players want to directly affect the world in which they live, and they also want to decide who they want to be and what they're going to do whilst they're there. Sunset Sky offers the player this experience.